In a parallel universe, instead of crashing in Kansas, Superman's ship has landed in the Soviet Union. In 1946, a young boy is running away from his bullies as another young girl tries to protect him. While the boy hides, the tough girl stands up to the bullies and punches one of them in the face, making them run away in fear. The boy, Semishka, emerges from hiding and Svetlana tells him that he needs to face his bullies. Semishka explains to her that he's not afraid of them, but rather afraid of hurting them. The seemingly normal boy walks to a tractor and easily lifts it above his head before grabbing Svetlana and flying high in the air. She finally tells him that he owes his powers to the state and should use them to help the people. Years later, reports of an alien being reaches the United States, a Soviet Superman. The indestructible alien causes a new arms race between both countries as the US fears what's coming their way. In the city of Metropolis in 1955, the Luthor Company is tasked to investigate whether Superman is real or not. Meanwhile, in the Soviet Union, Superman had helped build the largest hydroelectric station in the world. Stalin gives a speech to his people about Superman's efforts to help his country and even calls Superman a son. The unexpectedly shy hero reluctantly gives a speech and denounces any claims that he is the valiant hero they portray him to be, saying that he's merely a servant of the state. Even still, the Soviet Superman appears to be a symbol of hope to the people, proving that no matter where he is, Superman is always pure-hearted. Superman finally turns the dam on before flying away into the distance. Later on, one of the Soviet satellites mysteriously falls out of orbit and will collide with the United States if our hero doesn't step in. Superman saves the day and redirects the satellite towards the water, where it safely crashes. As the United States is introduced to Superman for the first time, he tells its people that he doesn't blame them for fearing him, claiming that it's their government's fault for feeding them lies. The rebellious Lois Lane Luthor introduces herself and asks Superman for an interview, but he refuses and flies away as she watches. That night at the Daily Planet, Superman meets Lois and immediately talks to her about his communist ideologies. Lois comments that he's an alien and doesn't know anything about humanity, but Superman replies that he did not have his powers until he was 12 years old. He is a lot like the rest of us and would do anything to protect this planet. Lois tells him that although America is flawed, the Soviet Union oppresses its people and subjects them to a cruel life. Initially, he refuses to believe her, but after looking at a file she hands him, he is shocked to discover what his country has been up to. Without saying a word, he flies away with a plan in mind. He visits the gulag and the soldiers are surprised to see him as he forces his way inside. The floor is covered with lead to prevent him from using his X-ray vision to find the prison. As he makes his way below, the guards are frozen in place as soon as they see Superman with all his might standing in front of them. Looking around the labor camp, he sees women and children starving and men being tortured. One of the kids blames him for not helping his people as a flock of bats eerily flies around him. Could he be this universe's caped crusader? Shocked, he finds an older Svetlana who immediately crumbles in his arms. As she is slowly dying, he storms out of the prison, liberating the people in the process. In his caring arms, Svetlana tells him that for years she held on to the hope that she would see him again, and that it is up to him to save their people. She dies in his arms as Superman sheds a tear for his childhood friend. No longer blind to this ugly reality, the enraged hero confronts Stalin in his castle. Stalin explains that he tried to protect him and merely did what was necessary before mocking Superman's purity and blindness. Sternly, Superman tells him that they must end this suffering. Stalin replies by saying that certain people must die to achieve that. Surprisingly, Superman agrees with his wise words, but then he suddenly shoots his laser beam at Stalin, incinerating the tyrant. The castle guards storm in, but seeing the horrifying events in front of them, they bow down to the tearful Superman, who says it is now time for him to save the world. Back in America, Lois and Lex are enjoying their time as a married couple before Lois receives urgent news that Stalin is dead and Moscow is in turmoil. It is then revealed that Lex was the one who handed Lois the file she gave Superman. The evil genius leaves his wife to go to his lab, where he's welcomed by Special Agent Olsen. He banters around with Lex until he reveals that using Superman's DNA, he's building their very own Superman. Then out of nowhere, war breaks out in Korea. Superman has decided to intervene in the Korean conflict and eliminate any Western involvement. Rather than lasting 3 years like the previous war, Superman ends this conflict in just 3 hours by uniting North and South Korea under his rule. After the battle, Superman announces to the world that he does not wish to conquer, but only to liberate, and he offers the same thing to the entire world. But back in America, Lex and Lois are accompanied by Olsen on their way to an important announcement. Lois has just become the editor-in-chief, and Lex forgot that today is their anniversary. The self-centered megalomaniac quickly moves on from the topic as he joins the president's speech about the Cold War and the threat Superman presents. Conventional weapons would not work against the alien, so the only solution was to turn to Lex, who built his own superior man, an improved version of Superman that he claims is faster, stronger, and far deadlier. After being asked a question, he says that he revealed the weapon to put fear inside Superman and let him know that they are coming. But on the other side of the world, Superman isn't fazed. Instead, he's casually dancing with Wonder Woman at a big event. They both seem to share the same ideologies, as Wonder Woman also hopes to do good around the world by expanding her reach. In the midst of this moment, the superior man is set loose and set on a mission to target Superman. Superman tells Diana that she is the first person he's met who also has superpowers, and together they can do some real good in the world. They form a friendship together, and Superman confides that he isn't worried about the flawed superior man. Diana hopes to be a bridge between both countries to bring peace, but as Diana leaves, Superman is doubtful. Just as Superman is going back to the event, Superior Man arrives to face him. Using just his voice, he cracks all the glass around as he threatens Superman. This insults Superman, who had only visited Metropolis to help the city in a time of need. Immediately, Superior Man punches Superman, throwing him all the way across town before following to beat him up some more. The reluctant Superman tells him that he doesn't want to fight him, saying that he is only being manipulated by his country. Not listening to reason, his replica continues to fight. Now Superman is angry. He's through giving warnings and begins beating the crap out of him as Lex watches from the safety of his lab. They pump Superior Man with more juice as the prototype becomes unstable. Still, Superman holds his own and beats him again, making Lex pump him with even more juice. This turns him into a brainless Frankenstein, which Superman still manages to defeat. The final dose becomes too much. He is now unrecognizable. Superior Man crumbles to pieces as Superman watches his replica in horror. From the lab, Lex watches, saying he knew this would happen. Lois is disgusted by her husband, but Lex is unfazed. He doesn't consider either one of them a human being. After some time, the Berlin Wall is being built to separate Western and communist ideologies, but Soviet Superman cannot stand for it. He arrives using all his might to tear down the wall, ridding Europe of American capitalism. In a flashback, we watch Brainiac's alien ship snatch away an entire city and miniaturize it before Superman can stop it. A tour guide explains that the city is kept under a close eye as they continue trying to restore it to this day. Utilizing the now reprogrammed Brainiac to serve the Soviet Union, Superman's rule has led to the near eradication of famine and disease. However, during a propaganda tour, the Soviet Batman emerges to express his disdain for Superman, unleashing a wave of terror through the city with a series of bombings that defy his usual no-kill rule. He seizes control of a helicopter, employing it to eliminate his remaining targets. The police attempt to apprehend him, but he cleverly leaves behind a decoy Batman, making a successful escape. Upon discovering the tragic aftermath of the bombings, Superman is overcome with profound sadness. Despite the severity of their crimes, he surprises everyone by opting to show mercy to Batman's minions instead of executing them. Amidst the chaos, Wonder Woman descends upon one of the blazing buildings, heroically rescuing a mother and her child. Joined by Superman, they express their shared disdain for Batman, who, despite lacking any superhuman abilities, manages to elude Superman and unleash devastation. Superman solemnly vows that Batman's day of reckoning will arrive. Shifting our focus to Nevada, the year is now 1967, and aging Lex accompanies President JFK to an extraterrestrial spacecraft, which they have retrieved along with the lifeless body of an alien. The alien is adorned with a mysterious ring speculated to possess incredible power. Captain Hal Jordan is entrusted with the leadership of a new military division dedicated to harnessing the potential of this ring, foreshadowing the emergence of the future Green Lantern. Meanwhile, the Soviet Union basks in unprecedented prosperity. Life expectancy and birth rates soar, while suicide rates plummet. Nevertheless, Diana appears dissatisfied with Superman's governing approach, since he seems to echo Stalin's ideologies and reasoning. He argues that regardless of any circumstances, they remain superior to America, which he claims is teetering on the brink of collapse. Diana firmly believes that genuine freedom must originate from within individuals, rather than being imposed upon them. Ultimately, Superman is granted a final opportunity to change his ways and prove his commitment to the world's greater good. In a subsequent meeting, Superman reflects on Diana's profound words while tension fills the air in the presence of the Chinese ambassador. Sensing something is off, Superman confronts the ambassador, who confesses his fear of Superman's overwhelming power, a feeling shared by many. Their conversation is abruptly interrupted by a sudden explosion, with the iconic bat symbol scorched into the ground some distance away. Diana's desperate cry for help pierces the chaos, and Superman rushes to her location. There, he discovers Diana bound by Batman using her own lasso. Batman explains that Diana has been reprogrammed by the lasso to listen to his commands and kill herself if Superman was to harm him. Batman reveals his lifelong desire to humiliate and annihilate Superman. Suddenly, he lights up a bunch of sun lamps emitting a red light, a gift from Lex. Superman tries to laugh it off, but Batman begins beating him up as it turns out that the lamps mimic the conditions of a red sun, taking away Superman's powers. Helpless, Diana witnesses Superman's brutal defeat as he attempts to crawl away before Batman's final assault. Then Superman is imprisoned, destined to rot for the remainder of his days, while Batman plans to take his country back. Consumed by rage, Diana breaks free from her lasso, aging visibly in the process. Still, she's strong enough to destroy the power source of the lamps, reinvigorating Superman. Now transformed into a menacing and terrifying version of himself, Superman rises, but Batman is determined not to spend his life as a captive. In a final act of defiance, he blows himself up. And right then Diana turns on Superman. Recognizing the darkness within him, she denounces their friendship before soaring away. As the years go by, America almost crumbles as a result of unrest and multiple presidential assassinations. The country was saved by the election of Lex Luthor, who brought the country back to its former glory. As a result, people begin to turn on Superman for his dictatorship in opposition to American democracy. Brainiac suggests taking immediate action against Lex, but Superman refuses to attack, explaining that he wants to win the argument and not a war. Brainiac stresses that as it stands, Lex is winning the argument and that a direct invasion is the only way forward. Although Superman rejects the idea of bloodshed, the decision is made for him when raiders detect an unidentified attack heading towards him. It turns out that the attack is from a squadron of Green Lanterns bearing down on him. Superman wastes no time and meets them head-on as he blasts through their formation. They try to fight him back using their rings, but Superman remains unfazed. With a burst of speed, he momentarily disorients one of his adversaries, only to be overwhelmed by the collective might of those remaining. Trapped in a box, it looks like he is going to be defeated. However, a blinding light interrupts the fight, revealing Diana as Superman's unexpected savior. She begs everyone to stop fighting and to see that peace is the only path forward. Blinded by rage, Superman forgets everything she's done for him and tries to punch her. Yet Diana effortlessly intercepts his blow, firmly declaring that they will never cross paths again before departing. Hal, injecting a touch of levity, comments to Superman,
"Women, right?"
An annoyed Superman promptly yeets him away. The remaining Green Lanterns unleash a barrage of attacks, but Superman, consumed by a frenzied fury, systematically dismantles the entire team. When the dust settles, he acknowledges Brainiac's wisdom, recognizing that invasion is the only recourse. Joined by Brainiac's ship, they launch an audacious assault on the White House, only to discover the complete absence of soldiers and defenses. By now, Superman is sure that Lex is up to something. In a surprising turn of events, Lois emerges alone, clutching Superman's miniature city, accusing Brainiac of always possessing the means to restore it. Brainiac confirms her accusation, shattering Superman's spirit. He confides in Lois that his intentions were always rooted in trying to end human suffering, but he naively believed his direct involvement would achieve that goal. They both share a moment, maybe in another life, there could have been something between them. Superman orders Brainiac to shut down his weapons system and to leave humanity alone. However, a shocking twist unfolds as Brainiac turns his weapons on Superman, obliterating the miniature city. It becomes obvious that Brainiac was never reprogrammed. He merely bided his time, plotting to seize control of the world. In a fierce showdown, Brainiac's attack propels Superman backward, but Lex intervenes, rescuing Lois from a collapsing pillar. Lex, now donning a high-tech suit, urges Lois to get to the presidential bunker while he and Superman unite to fight Brainiac together. Their goal is to disable the force field and breach the ship. Lex is ensnared momentarily, but Superman quickly saves his former enemy, allowing Lex to deploy his technology and create a breach in the shield. Superman hurtles through the opening, engaging in a fierce battle with Brainiac. In a decisive moment, Superman vanquishes Brainiac, tearing his head from his body and crushing it. Tragically, Brainiac's ship begins a self-destruct sequence, threatening to obliterate a 15 million mile radius. With no other option, the fate of the world rests solely on Superman's shoulders. Ascending into outer space, he guides the ship away from Earth, hurtling through space and time. Recalling the words of Svetlana, he embraces his destiny, sacrificing himself in a radiant burst of light to save the planet he called home. After Superman's heroic sacrifice, Lex delivers a speech heralding the imminent downfall of the Soviet Union. While he does that, Lois recognizes Superman in disguise, blending in seamlessly with the crowd before vanishing from sight. Lex announces his resignation, passing the mantle of the presidency to his longtime ally, Agent Olsen. As the crowd cheers and rejoices, Superman gazes upon the scene with a smile before embarking on a new chapter, a life of solitude and anonymity. This was one of the most interesting and original comic book stories that captivates pretty much anyone with its premise alone. What if Superman was a communist? Superman is traditionally such an American icon, representing all those ideals, which is why it's fascinating to see this movie flip it around. Finding out who the Man of Steel would become if he had arrived in the USSR really explores the core of this superhero. We also love how Superman was not evil per se, instead he was just conflicted. Blinded by his ideologies and his desire to do good, he eventually became like the people he hated. This movie didn't try to boil things down to make it a story about communism being bad and democracy being good. Instead, it portrayed both sides' flaws and emphasized the value of them banding together in the heroic conclusion. One fascinating detail about this movie is the fact that the name Stalin is Russian for Steel Man, or more appropriately in this case, Man of Steel. Another great symbolic detail was when Wonder Woman was depicted donning a double-headed eagle rather than her typical one. This is actually a symbol from Roman mythology that was adopted as the national symbol of Russia. It's great seeing the thought that went into this movie, and we would recommend it to anyone that loves exploring superhero stories and alternative universes. Well, this brings us to the end of today's video. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to our channel to get more videos like this one. Your support helps us grow. And tell me what you think about this film. Do you prefer the American or the communist Superman? Do you enjoy situations where Superman is potentially evil and flawed, as opposed to always being the #1 good guy around? Let me know in the comments below. I read all of them. And if you're watching till now, thank you. I'll see you in another video soon.